Shalom. Give all praise. Let's up Great Millstone. Peace and salutation, all you Arkham out there pushing the truth in love and sincerity and in charity. Now, this is a live update on Hurricane Irma, and this is happening right now as we speak. Alright, so I'm gonna just give you some footage of what's going on right now in the US, in Florida. Alright,
this is a couple of inches an hour, and it lies inland and flash flooding. And the tornado threat, there's a tornado watch now till midnight for southern Florida. That includes Fort Myers, Naples, and over here in the Fort Lauderdale and Miami Beach area in Miami. So we have that threat too. And again, the biggest threat that will affect the most people will be the destructive winds. Already, just checking Florida Power and Light, about 50,000 customers without power in Miami-Dade and 27,000 customers without power in Fort Lauderdale. Those numbers are only going to go up. And don't think because your power lines are underground, you're not going to get by without power outages, because if you have underground flooding, that can knock out the power. Well, Brian, I think we've gotten through the worst of this right now, but it's still blowing pretty good, buddy. You've been through some of these, and we're going to see a lot of this, and even worse, as we go through tonight and tomorrow. We'll get it.
this only could be an Edomite, a troglodyte. What is out here in this rain, in this storm? Because you know, us Israelites, we ain't foolish enough to go out there talking, but we broadcasting in a storm. Check this troglodyte out.
Back to you in the studio in the lab. You give us an update with that 8 o'clock from the National Hurricane Center, and also touch base on the radar, because I have no access to the latest tornado warnings. I know we have one in Dade right now that goes until 8:15, part of Miami-Dade County.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. That band is an extremely intense band, and we see this sometime. We see storms breathe, and there you see it on the radar, and there it is right there coming in. And when we look at the satellite, picture here, and you can clearly see, look at this, look at that, look at the storm kind of breathing outward that way, which quite often they do in the evening hours, and we're getting this extra energy in this outer band here, and that is going to continue to rotate in, because the center of the storm isn't moving much, so it kind of rotate around but also slowly move north. So this is going to be a dramatic evening here in southeast Florida, in metropolitan Miami, Fort Lauderdale, as that happens, and there are other more minor bands yet to come in as well. So 120 miles an hour. So yes, the top winds estimated by the Hurricane Center, hurricane hunters out there couldn't find the 125, so they lowered it to 120. You know, this is a really difficult communications challenge, because everybody, of course, is hoping that this storm is going to just weaken because it's interacting with Cuba, but everything we know about the meteorology of this says that it is going to re-strengthen. But it's down to 120 as the pressure continues to go down. Well, let's look at it close up here. The pressure is a measure of the overall energy in the whole system. So you can have relatively low winds with very low pressure if it's a huge system. Hurricane Sandy was an example of that. So even though the pressure in the center might be going down, if the energy is distributed over a larger area, that can mean that that can all make sense, even if the top winds right near the center might be a little bit lower. But once it gets away here from the coast and heads up where we think it'll go toward the lower Keys, the expectation is that those top winds will increase as well, and we end up with a high-end Category 3 or maybe a Category 4 hurricane, or heaven forbid a Category 5. The forecast is for it to approach the lower Keys overnight tonight and be there in the early hours of the morning as a Category 4 hurricane, and then continue to intensify as it heads up towards southwest Florida during the day tomorrow, arriving there in the afternoon, and then passing Tampa late tomorrow in terms of the strongest winds. Now, we'll time that out a little more closely in just a moment, but then we ended up here Monday up in the southeast as a really strong windstorm till it finally spins down about Tuesday, maybe late on on Tuesday, and we're kind of done for the most part with this hurricane. But the cone, it can mislead you, and I just want to be sure that nobody in southeast Florida, although with the weather that's happening, I don't think anybody can be easily misled. But the fact is that you see what we have here right now. These are the tropical storm winds that you were seeing. That's a tropical storm, folks. That's not a hurricane. That's on the fringe of the hurricane, these tropical storm force winds. And the stronger winds are down now affecting the Keys, where the winds are gusting to almost hurricane force. We had 71 miles an hour at Marathon just a little while ago, and then the sustained winds are still battering that north coast of Cuba. Now watch as we go forward in time, and this is all the Hurricane Center is confident in the size of the different intensities of the wind just tomorrow night, so that's as far as we can go. But you see that the hurricane force gusts went through Miami, West Palm Beach, on up the East Coast. So like in Central Florida, we're talking about tomorrow evening with the strongest winds coming through then. And on the West Coast, the core of the hurricane is forecast to move through Naples, Fort Myers, on up to Venice, Sarasota, and on up into the Tampa Bay area during the day tomorrow. All right, let's take a look at the models here, because everybody looks at the models, wants to know what the models say. The models say that what we're talking about is exactly what's going to happen. This is a new run of the GFS model, confirms that the center of the storm is expected to come very close to the west coast of Florida, and all these very, very severe effects are indeed still forecast to happen exactly like that, and they're confirmed by the spaghetti models as well. As far as the timing for the wind, this is how much time you have to get to your safe spot and to be prepared and to do all the things Paul Goodlow was talking about a moment ago. We're done here in South Florida. Tropical storm force winds have moved in. We have until tomorrow morning in the I-4 corridor in Central Florida. That's it. You need to be in place in the morning, as this is going to move on in. Up along the Georgia-Florida line, you have till tomorrow evening, and then Monday the winds move into Atlanta. We're going to time the storm surge when we come back here a little bit later in this hour, because that is critical for your safety on the west coast of Florida, and to some degree on the east coast as well. All right, who am I sending it to? I'm sorry. Oh, Mike Seidel in Miami. Let's go back to him. Mike.
Okay, Brian, we've gotten out of the worst of it. It's now north of here, up towards Hialeah, and then up towards North Miami Beach and back inland. That's where we've sent that squall. Boy, what a slapping we got out here. More on the way. We're just on the fringe, the northern fringe of this wide gyre, this big. I can guarantee you the name Irma will be retired. We'll never have another Irma again. This is a given after what we've seen so far and what we're going to see in the next couple of days across Florida and the southeast. Let's go over to the other side of the coast, across the Alligator Alley. Mike Banos has moved from Lauderdale, where they've had some water spouts and possible tornadoes today. Mike, over to your side of the coast, to Naples. What have you seen so far, and have you talked to anybody, the locals, about what they're expected to get tomorrow with the eye wall from Irma?
Yeah. Mike, you know, not a whole lot of really violent weather so far. It's been breezy at times. We've had some rain. In fact, that's what it's doing right now. The winds haven't been much at all this evening. Locals? What locals? I mean, there's hardly anybody here. We drove up and down 41, and we were the only car on the road at one point. There's nobody here, and I find that to be a great sign of how big and bad this storm is and how people have taken notice, right? So here we are.
God, they call it the Exodus out of Florida. Why these people have some, you know, but they know that the Most High is coming, all right?
Right on the beach at Naples Pier, and I'm going to show you the pier itself. Okay, so they remodeled this, did some reconstruction on it a couple of years ago, reopened it in 2015. Love the pilings here. Okay, they've separated these. They're about 12 feet apart. The outer ones are angled out. The center one is straight down, and these go all the way out into the water, right? But I want to show you something else that's out here that's really interesting. The U.S. Geological Survey. We know them for earthquakes, right? They do storm surge as well. They actually place this temporary storm surge shelter sensor to this piling, okay? And what this does, it basically registers pressure, so it determines how much water is above the sensor, and they can figure out how much storm surge happened at this particular location. That's pretty awesome stuff there, and it really gives them a good idea of the forecast. It gives them a good idea of opportunities when it comes to future forecasts. They model stuff like this. But what's going to happen to the Atlantic Ocean? We think initially we're going to start out, especially tomorrow morning, with really strong east.
Peak of the winds, the most intense, the core of Irma, coming through later on Sunday into the overnight with 100-mile-plus per hour winds. That storm surge, frightening number right there, 15 feet. Remember that storm surge warning issued in these places where the Hurricane Center believes these are life-threatening conditions here, life-threatening storm surge. In Sarasota as well, 10-foot storm surge possible with 5 to 8 inches of rainfall. The maximum winds, we think, again, in that area coming up late on Sunday. But by tomorrow morning, those wind gusts will already be coming up. So at that point, you need to be in your spot. All right, let's send it back out to Miami and Mike Seidel. Hi, Mike.
Here we go. Hey, Maria, we're on the other side of the building, and you can see how the streets here in Miami have filled up with water about 6 to 8 inches deep. This is freshwater rain. We're also getting certainly the tide, and it's all coming in from the Atlantic. We've got a surge forecast of 4 to 6 feet. We'll keep you updated from here and up and down the Sunshine State.
Okay, so there you have it. Alright, so this tempest, this is coming to the US. Okay, so the Mossad is getting ready to tear things up over there again. Alright, Esau know he have but a short time, okay, for his kingdom, because we know, according to the scripture, Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning that follow it. Alright, so I hope this information been good to you. So until next time, Shalom.